I've been on that journey too. Figuring, like you say, who you really are. It always sounds so cheesy, right? But
it's really not. Like that's the cerebral kind of, oh, that's cheesy.
I know.
Judgment and putting labels on all of the things and being critical of yourself, of myself. But you get through that cheesy stuff and it's glorious.
I know.
Let's be glorious.
Yeah, that word again.
Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Belgariad and Beyond. This is the podcast where we get into lots of magical shenanigans, and we're talking about The Pawn of Prophecy, which is the first book in the Belgariad series. And this week we're up to chapter 18. My name is Sondra Turnbull and I'm from the Goddess Kindled universe.
Hey guys, I am Alysia Seymour, fiction author, and I'm really enjoying reading this series. And chapter 18, I think, is one of the best for me, again, out of the three. I've probably said that too. So
it is an exciting chapter.
I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into our week. So how was your week this week, Alysia?
Okay, so I put in my cup was bittersweet, and there's a mixture of the bitter part, which is, I had a huge realization, which I can share either now or later, but
wherever you think it fits best, sweetie.
Okay.
Share it now, maybe we'll get deeper later.
Sure. So it was this realization combined with the fact that I've been trying to get past these headaches and also dreams. For the last 2 or 3 years of my life, dreams have been really bothersome every single night. But it seems as these realizations come to me and I'm clearing all of this energy that I don't no longer, wow, that was great English, that I no longer want, the dreams are becoming more bothersome, and I don't know what to do about it.
So as you're clearing stuff, the dreams are becoming more bothersome.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll talk about that more.
Yeah, I didn't know you might have insight on that stuff, but I have no idea what to do about it. I haven't been able to figure out how to either stop dreaming or to just shift them into something better. Like I've stopped stuff that would, aggravate right before sleep. And I've obviously tried my best to de-stress and all of that. So I'm not sure what it is, but the realization I had, just really quick to touch on, was that I've been self-sabotaging myself for like the last 2 years with almost like every decision I've made.
This is not a quick touch, sweetheart. You just as long as you like.
Yeah, well, I don't need to get that deep into it here, but it was just a huge thing when I realized every decision I thought I had made on faith, I had actually made on fear. And there was a friend who pointed this out to me 2 days ago, and then I think it was yesterday. Something I was reading actually confirmed that for me in the way that it was worded. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I've been doing. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what she just told me yesterday I was doing. And it was just a huge thing. Like the last decision I just recently made, which I've talked to you in detail about, has been hanging over me. It was a huge investment that I took on a leap of faith, just hoping that the money would show up to it, to cover it. And of course it hasn't. And when I looked back on when I made the decision, I realized that I wasn't making that decision on faith that the money will come. I made the decision because I was afraid that if I didn't go do this thing, which is a retreat for a week, that I wouldn't have the means or figure out a way to create the life I wanted, to bring in the money I wanted. And so it was really, when you get down underneath, it was really an act of fear of why I signed up.
Yep.
And so looking back on many of my decisions the last 2 years, it was exactly that situation. I I couldn't see it for what it was. So now I'm hoping that I have that clarity. Things are going to really start turning around. But I think, that's a combination of my dreams too. Like they're related. What's going on?
There's no way that they're not related.
Yeah.
And maybe it would be helpful because there's no way that you're not going to dream, sweetheart. This is how you process so much stuff on the spiritual and emotional, level. You're never not going to dream. But it might help if when you remember them, or is that the distressing part, the things that you remember, like the disturbing?
What really is making it hard is that when I wake up in the morning, I get like flashes of some of them. Sometimes I remember all of it.
Okay.
And then I just feel so tired. I don't feel like I got any sleep.
Okay, so very often, depending on your esoteric bent, it's the case because we're doing work all night on ourselves. We're going on adventures. We're journeying. We're processing all of this stuff. Now, some of that is physical stress carried into the night. I think if we don't spend enough time, relaxing our physical bodies in a really intentional way, that can just carry through the night and change the mixture of chemicals and hormones in our bodies and that sort of thing. That's just a physiological thing. But when you're dreaming, an interesting thing that I heard someone talking about recently was that all of the metaphor that appears in your dream is you in a form that will tell you a story or help you process. So the people that you see in your dream, even if they're familiar faces, are an aspect of you. And so sometimes, and I found that that's kind of an interesting way to look at it, because it helps to really step into that accountable part of it. I think it's easy to just say, well, it was a dream, I've got no control over that. And that is true. However, if I see myself in all of the things presented to me in the dream as an aspect of myself trying to work something out, whether that person represents that person or that person represents something that we associate between ourselves and that person. Like, dreams are metaphor, they're total metaphor. And so maybe if you write down all of the things that you remember as soon as you can, and then you don't have to go through it straight away, but kind of that way you've emptied it out. Just like any journaling practice, you empty it out onto the page. And once it's on the page, it can't morph into something else or trick you into misremembering. Like, you put down what you remember, and then later on you can deepen it and you might get extra flashes and insights and intuitions, and it will take you, further down a particular rabbit hole or further into that particular metaphor and help you just to peel extra layers away. But, perhaps that would be a helpful way to work with your dreams, rather than looking at it as something that you want to get rid of. Embrace the experience and really soften into it as parts of yourself that are trying to speak to you.
Right.
Maybe
it's interesting when you put in the point of view of like the people that I know. A lot of the times it is people I know in my dreams, people who were very close to me at some point and aren't anymore, or are still currently. Like, of course, my husband and daughters are in them frequently, but sometimes it does help to see like, okay, so that's not actually like me seeing them in the dream, but that's me seeing part of me as them. Or like a perception maybe I have or had.
So I think it's a really helpful way to then go in and go deeper into the dream.
Yeah, I'll try that and see what happens if things shift in any way. And maybe I should start doing like a evening yoga before bed too.
Well, I think it doesn't ever hurt. Like, to put you, I don't do it all the time, but I'm a big proponent of when I'm really in that space of really looking after myself, I put my phone on airplane mode, like at least an hour before I go to bed. Ideally 2 hours before I go to bed. And then I have Like I know that a lot of people have a morning ritual that gets them lined up for the day. You know, they get up super early and what have you. But I think that the evening ritual you have for yourself is just as important as the morning ritual. And in fact, they are both connected, because if you don't have a good evening ritual, you can't have a good morning ritual, because you're always trying to force yourself into a state of being that isn't coming naturally because you didn't look after yourself the night before. So it's all sort of, you know, life ritual, that sort of thing. But definitely, like, put your phone on airplane mode, stay away from all your electronics, you know, maybe go and put a yoga video on your computer or wherever you watch your yoga videos, but not anything that's connected to something that you're going to go and randomly scroll through. Be really intentional about it. Or even if you know a few yoga poses, or learn just a few yoga poses, you don't have to be like some bloody acrobat doing weird and wonderful things on your mat. Just a few, you know, like really yummy stretchy poses with a pillow. Yeah. Even just lie on your yoga mat and do corpse pose for 15 minutes. You know, light a candle, dim all the lights, light a candle, and just do corpse pose for 15 minutes. That's yoga, my darlings. And it's like, whoa. It's hard when you start, because you think, I could be doing all this other stuff. This is such a waste of time, but it's really not. You know, my struggle is because of my kids. I have really difficult bedtimes right now, and they're constantly, after you put them in bed, they could get up like 20 times, and it's like trying to do yoga with that going on is like, I know that it's so frustrating, and I also know that it doesn't last forever. They do eventually go to bed, you know, when they turn 17 or something. So I got 10 more years. But maybe even, you know, here we are, the coaching show, Alysia, starring Alysia and Sondra. You know, maybe even, you know, if you get to that point where you're so frustrated that you just can't do it anymore because they keep getting out of bed, maybe just, if you're lying on your yoga mat, just open up your arms, get her to come over and just lie down on top of you, and like you both do corpse pose together, and get your, you know, use your heart, you know, the connection of your heartbeats as like a focus, and get her relaxed, get you relaxed, and then carry her off to bed and have your own little ritual. And maybe that's then feeds them enough of that I want mummy energy to then just kind of not ask for another glass of water. I don't know. It's an idea. Yeah, that's true. That's a good idea. I like that. Yeah, I'm gonna give it all a try this week, starting tonight, and see what I can bring from that. I didn't check the time when we started. I don't know. Oh well, maybe this will be our first 2-hour episode. Maybe so. Anyway, so my week. Shall I get into my week? Sure. Short and sweet. My potion this week is sweet, dry, and bubbly, and tastes a lot like champagne, because my new book is launched and people are buying it and excited to read it. So that's me. I'm just in celebration mode this week. Yay. That's awesome. Yeah. Congratulations. Thank you. So it's called, anybody who wants to check it out, it's called Embodying Earth, Real Magic and Spiritual Self-Care. If you are here listening to this podcast, chances are you're going to like it. Yeah. I've read part of it, so I can say that it is definitely really worth it. Like the little taste you just got, what she was talking to me about, is everything in that book. So, it's awesome. Yeah, so there's a book full of that sort of stuff that you can guide yourself through. And in a few weeks, I'll be releasing the workbook. So it's an expanded version of the paperback in a larger form, like it's a larger book to hold in your hands. And I've put lots of space in there for journaling and drawing and just kind of keeping track of all of the experiences that the book guides you through. And so I'm hoping that it becomes like a personal book of wisdom. Like if people choose to use it, they can build their own book of wisdom, and kind of, it's just like well, you know, if you're a journaler, you will love it. But anyway, that's coming up in a few weeks' time. But at the moment, you can get the paperback for a special price. But by the time you listen to this, it'll be back to regular price. So go check it out anyway.
Which I'm sure is still a very reasonable price. So
yes, it's very, very, very reasonable. Yeah, so that's my week.
Yay! Sounds like a great week.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm very happy. Very happy.
Yeah. Just a real quick update on my writing. I'm almost done with my first draft for my next novel. Which
No way!
By next week, by the next time we record, I'm going to be done with it. Of course, I have to go back and read.
I just got goosebumps like all over my body. It's so exciting. I've just started. I've just started the revision of Afro's Earth, my first magical realism novel. Like I'm totally revising it, and I've oh my god, my head. I feel a bit. Oh, I think I'm dizzy. My blood pressure's just gone up. It's very exciting. I'm so excited for you. I can't wait to hear about all of it when you finish.
Yeah. I'll try to share little updates here as I go.
That would be good. Yes, please.
Yeah. All right. So on to
Garion's view, please.
Okay. So I don't know. This is pretty vague summary here, but Garion, he's on the run through the corridors, because Ashrak's chasing him. His guards are chasing him. He can't tell who's good, who's bad. They all look the same to him. So he goes up these stairs. He barely escapes with his life or something with these two guys that decide to attack each other instead of him. So he gets away. And then up in this room, he's looking he can't figure out where he's at. So he's looking for a way out, and he finds this really dark corridor and goes through it. And he finally finds a light and follows it, only to find out that it overlooks the throne room, and that's where all of his buddies are down there having conversations. And he waits till the very end to be like, oh, by the way, I'm up here. And that's the chapter.
Okay. Yes, it's a very succinct way of putting a very exciting chapter. Well done. Okay. So Wolf's Wisdom is where we dive into the meat of the chapter, and that's what we're going to do now.
Yep. Yeah, because the first chapter was really just kind of, what do you call it?
The first chapter? What?
The first half of the chapter is just description of him on the run, right?
Well, yeah. So you sound like it was a bit confusing or even a bit annoying.
No, it wasn't confusing. I think that's why I just felt that it was easy to summarize it, I guess, because there wasn't as much dialogue going on. It was more we're following Garion on the run.
Yeah, there's a lot of internal stuff going on, a lot of internal description of how he's feeling, and there's a few really important things that happen, though. So this chapter picks up after he's turned around and run away from Ashrak, who came out of his bedroom when he was sent back to his bedroom by Aunt Pol. And so he snapped out of that sort of vague headspace that he was in after Aunt Pol broke the connection between him and Ashrak and sent him back to his room. Ashrak stepped out. He snapped out of this dazed state and just run away. But the problem is he doesn't know who's a friend and who's not. So there are warriors everywhere, but some of them are Ashrak's men and some of them are Cherik warriors, and they're all Cheriks, but some of them are friends and some of them are foes, and he doesn't know which ones to go to. And I love how that's described as both frustrating but also frightening. It kind of amps up his fear because he has to be afraid of everybody, because even though some of them he doesn't need to be afraid of, he doesn't know who they are. So this is the point. As I was reading through this chapter, my heart started thudding. I could feel I started to get really amped up myself as I was reading it. So because I think I'll let you talk in a minute. Sorry, I'm just
it's okay.
this is one of those chapters that I skim through really fast because I think I get so excited and so kind of like, oh, you know, a bit frightened myself for Garion. I'm so like inside the story that this is one of those ones that I skim through. But this time, reading it for the show, I like slowed right down. I even stopped a couple of times and went back because I realized I'd started skimming to read every word, and holy crap, my heart was beating so fast.
Yeah, it was a good chapter. I might have done the skimming this time because it's my first time going through it. So it was kind of like, yeah, I want to see what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah. So he's running, he's just running, and he figures that the higher he goes, the less danger he'll be in, because somehow he logics out that all the fighting will happen, you know, down near the main rooms. And so he sort of spots a staircase and darts up it, but halfway up realizes he's got nowhere to go. If someone else appears, he can't get out because it's just a narrow corridor. Now, I want you to describe this particular scene because I think it's really important in Garion's story. I just want to see what you think of it and what stood out for you.
Oh. Well, I wouldn't have ever guessed that it was anything important by reading it. But I just got the feeling, like as soon as he started to panic of like, wait, I don't have anywhere to go. It's kind of like, well, you don't really, I hadn't really considered that either. Like running up a staircase would kind of block you as to your options. So I think it's just when first he sees somebody above him, and then he wants to run down, but somebody shows up below too. So he's like trapped in there then. And the way I envision it, and maybe this is something I overlooked, was that, I don't know if I skimmed it or what, but I just felt like it seemed too coincidental that first that man at the top seems to want him, Garion, but then he spots the other guy below, and all of a sudden they only have eyes for each other and they just start attacking each other and let Garion slip by. That's how I interpreted it.
Well, yes, that in a very brief statement, yes, that's exactly what happens. Like the warrior appears at the top, one appears at the bottom, one of them yells out to him. The one at the bottom has a sword, the one at the top has an axe. And they're obviously on opposite sides. So one of them's an Asherak warrior, one of them's one of King Aneg's warriors. And they do spot each other, and all of a sudden, Garion, it's like he pushes himself up against the side of the staircase, and these two warriors just go for each other. And who knows why that is. I've never been in a battle where weapons are being drawn and I have any desire to like poke it into another person. So I can imagine that it would, like, just reading this stuff, my heart starts beating faster and my blood feels like it's flowing faster, which obviously is because my heart's beating faster. But, you know, so if that happens to me just from reading this, the description of it and imagining it in my head, it must be pretty fucking full on, like, for them. So I can totally imagine that yeah, they just want to do each other in. But the thing that I think is really important about this particular scene for Garion's story is it's the first time he's seen up close people killing each other, people really doing damage. Like, I know that he's been in that little fight back in wherever it was, Doreen or wherever, but this is like full on, up close and personal, in front of his freaking face, sword sliding through a body. And the way it's described, I actually feel a little nauseated when I read this scene, which is spectacular. You know, the way that the author describes the dagger thrusts that each of the warriors are performing as they tumble past Garion down the stairs, because the one at the bottom has run up the stairs and his sword's just slid into the warrior at the top who's lunging down. towards him, and the sword just goes through him and makes no difference at all, because all that happens is the one that's tumbling down pulls out his dagger and plunges it into the chest of the other guy. But the way it's described as the sickening sounds, and the squelching, I can just hear like this kind of sound in my head, with the knives going in and out of, like they're both stabbing each other in the chest as they go down. Like it totally doesn't matter that, you know, they're sticking sharp objects into each other. They're having it. They're like doing it till neither of them can like do any more. And Garion, you know, and so that's the thing that I think is important here, the fact that Garion has this up close and personal experience of what humans can do to each other.
Yeah, it even talks about him retching at the sounds and the smells of it all. So I could see that it would be nauseating. So that's when he gives up his trying to be stealthy and just books it to get out of there.
Yeah, and I could feel the panic. I don't know about you. It just says here he forgets about trying to, as you say, be stealthy, and just takes off. Because I'd fucking take off too.
Yeah, right. So this is where he arrives up in that room, right?
So he just runs and runs and runs, and then he goes through the door of a chamber and just closes the door and leans against the door, just kind of trying to gather himself. And it's just an unused room, you know, a big sagging bed and a little window and a couple of broken bits of furniture.
So this is when he looks out the window, right, and tries to see if he can figure out where in the castle he is, and he realizes he has no idea.
He drags the chest over to the window to try and, like, it's a good idea, top marks Garion, but he has no idea where he is. But at least it's a place out of the way, so he's kind of created a little safe space for himself, out of the way of the savage men who are killing each other out in the halls. But he quickly realizes that it's not really safe. It's just like an illusion of safety. And because if someone opened the door, he'd be trapped. There's nowhere for him to go.
This is where he discovers that opening behind the drapes.
Yes. So some raggedy drapes against he pulls them back.
That it doesn't lead to another room, but it's a dark and narrow hall. He hesitates at first to go in there. That's when he decides to look out the window instead. But then after he knows he has no idea where he is, and he gets down, realizes he needs to cover up his footprints, and he tries to do so. That's
a lovely descriptor about the state of the room. Like the state of the furniture, we can understand that it's an unused kind of abandoned room, but the fact that he's left really clear footprints in the dust kind of speaks to how much dust is actually on the floor.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, I like that.
So he decides that his best option then is to go through that dark hallway.
He drags the bolster off the bed around on the floor to kind of wipe out the footprints. So that takes care of that. So if someone glances in, they won't see that immediately that he's been in there. So that's a little bit clever.
Yeah. And it talks about him in the hallway feeling the cobwebs on his face, but he can't see anything. Like, this is where I really felt it.
Oh, did you?
More than that fight scene, I could just feel that sensation of like reaching into the dark. You don't know what you're gonna touch.
Yeah. And it's not just dark, it's complete absence of light. Like, you cannot see anything in this little corridor behind the curtain.
Right. And then he starts like imagining, what if I just step and then fall completely straight down? So he slows down to make sure he has his footing if anything were to happen like that.
Yeah. But it keeps going.
And he finds a wall. He thinks it's a dead end, realizes that the hallway actually just turns to the right. And that's where he sees like a little bit of light. So he starts going towards it. And of course, this is when he figures out that he's actually overlooking the throne room. And everybody he knows is down there.
Yes. So they're all kind of just sitting around looking quite serious.
Well, it says he was about to call down to them when he realized that flaxen-haired man
Sorry, say that again. So he's looking down at them. You know, everyone's there, Aunt Pol and Barak's wife and Wolf and the kings and queens. And Silk pacing the floor nervously.
Mm-hmm.
And Garion just feels such a surge of relief. And I must admit, I do. At this point, I'm like, this is where I go, oh, okay, it's all okay.
Yeah.
And he goes to call down, but the doors of the throne room bang open and someone comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Barak and the Riven Warder. So do you remember who the Riven Warder is before we go any further? Okay, so he is, the Rivens don't have a king, remember, because the king was killed by the Neosins. So the Riven Warder stands in place of the Riven king because they don't have a king. So basically he is the caretaker of the country in place of a king. And so he's called the Riven Warder. And he seems to be a pretty big dude because he can hold, he's compared to Barak, as powerful as Barak. So he's a pretty big dude.
Mm-hmm.
And he and Barak come in to the throne room with the struggling form of the flaxen-haired man between them. And Garion recognizes him as the man that he saw when they were out boar hunting.
The flaxen-haired man and Jarvik are the same person, right?
Yes. The flaxen-haired man is Count Jarvik.
Okay. But the man in the green cloak is somebody else, right?
The man in the green cloak is employed by Jarvik to spy on the king. Okay,
yeah, I was confusing myself when I was reading this for a minute, but then I was like, no, I think it's...
Yeah. So the order of it is Asherak pays Jarvik, who pays the man in the green cloak. So that's the order of diabolicalness. I don't think that's a word. I just made it up. So yeah, so Arneg starts in at Jarvik, who seems quite arrogant. Jarvik seems quite arrogant and like, well, you know, whatever. If it had gone differently, I'd be in that throne right now. So,
yeah, and he doesn't want to talk. They're asking him to tell him what happened, and he's saying, I'd rather bite out my tongue before I tell you anything.
Yeah. Okay. So you talk about this next bit.
Yeah, this part, I don't know if I missed something, but I know, Aunt Pol does something to him with her stare. Is that what it is?
Well, I want to know what your impression is. I want to know what your understanding is because I know all the things, you see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, she does something where she stares at him and he becomes really afraid or really upset by whatever. I don't know if she's making him see something or feel something that's just horrifying to the point that he never wants to feel or see it again. And so he's like, all right, I'll talk, just take it away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't really know what it is specifically.
Well, I'll talk about that. I think I picked that for later on. I'll talk about that later on.
Okay.
But yeah, that's pretty much how you've described it. It's pretty full on. Like, it's so horrifying to Jarvik that he literally screams and begs her to take it away, and that he agrees to talk.
Yeah, so I think it's into all of this explanation of how it all started.
Yeah. So do you want me to go through that just quickly?
Sure.
Okay, so basically, King Arneg is actually he's quite compassionate, like in a not a condescending way, but just a really, he seems quite sad that it's this Cherrick person has come to this sort of treason. But basically, Cherrick Jarvik is a bit of a dick, a spoiled rich dick who wanted more money and found a way to make money by meeting up with Asherak in Sendaria, who asked him to do quite, things that really weren't very treasonous. They were just a bit yucky, answering questions and general stuff, and he paid him for it. And he paid the thing that's important about this particular exchange is that the Angarak, Asherak, paid Jarvik with Murgo gold, red gold. So that you'll read more about that as the story goes on. But red gold from the mines of Cthul Murgos seems to be imbued with this magical quality. Like Wolf, I don't know if you saw it, but Wolf comments, yes, red gold calls to its own. So it seems to have this way of making you greedy for more of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's sort of maybe one of the important things about this, that Jarvik just threw away all of his scruples and committed absolute treason on a country that he loved because he wanted more of this gold, because the feeling was so overwhelming that he couldn't resist it.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually he agreed to bring the Murgo into Cherek, which is doubly treasonous because that's like the oldest law they have, no Angarax in Cherek. And so he's done this, and then he's spied on the king. So it's like he's just like, yeah. So, and it is quite sad the way it's presented. Like it's almost like this spell is, yeah, okay, you're a weak idiot, but this spell has been cast on you, and this is really a despicable thing that we now have to punish you for because we have no other choice. You've created this situation, and now you just have to lie right in the middle of the shit.
Yeah.
Who is it that asks him what he wanted?
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
What Asherak's price was. What did he want in return for making him king?
Because Asherak promised to make Jarvik king if he brought him over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He said that there was a boy, about 14.
Yeah, he said such a small thing. He wanted such a small thing. I couldn't believe he was going to make me king for just this tiny little thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, King Fulrak kind of chimes in, and he's like, the boy Garion. And this is where I was a little bit confused.
Will you tell me how it came across an I shall explain things?
It's right after is it Fulrak? King Fulrak.
King Fulrak?
Okay, so he says the boy Garion. Why would Asherak want him? And it's not until this moment, while all this crazy battle has been going on throughout the castle, that Aunt Pole first starts to feel afraid for Garion's safety.
Yeah. Well, because she thinks that Garion is safe in his room.
But if they're all throughout the castle, wouldn't she feel more concerned? Like,
that's
if
interesting.
She sees that these guys are running everywhere through the halls, and I think that would have been my first instinct, is to go make sure he's okay.
That's very interesting. Yes. I mean, but I can imagine that she would just believe that Garion had followed her instructions to the letter.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially if she had done some kind of magic with him when she broke that connection and then gave him the instruction, and perhaps she trusted that that instruction was powerful enough to take him where he was supposed to go, and that was that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess that casts up other questions like, is his mind such a mind that it shakes off these kinds of spells more easily than other people? Because it's not the first time that he's kind of, come out of a state of like where the others' minds have been put to sleep. There was that one other instance when they were hiding from the other riders on the road, when Hol and Wolf put their minds to sleep. He didn't stay asleep. He woke. He was like half of. It's interesting. It's like when you were talking before about operating from your mind and operating from your heart. It's like part of him was awake and part of him was asleep. And it was almost like the part of him that was asleep was this mind part that gets in the way.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you're right. It is like really, like it's almost unbelievable. But if I stretched it a little bit and like look at it from that point of view, I could believe it. I'm not totally incredulous.
Right. Yeah, I just had a really hard time believing her reaction here, because she's like, it says, Aunt Pole's single frightened gasp carried even up to where Garion was concealed, and then she yells for Dernick.
Well,
He
and
was,
also before you go, but also because they don't realize how much Asherak wants Garion. Like, yes, they've been connected, but that
Mhm.
could have been anything. She could be thinking it's because of me that they had this connection, or
Maybe.
so maybe we're seeing something as readers that she is still like unaware of.
Yeah. Could be. Could be. It just, the way it was written just threw me off.
So
But
keep going. So
but
they find out
that's,
that it's Garion that he wants.
yeah, so Dernek, goes to run up and see if he's okay into his room, but then that's when Garion decides maybe I should let them know I'm here.
Yeah, like bloody hell, Garion, really? Eavesdropping again?
And so she tells him to come down immediately, and he's like, I don't know how, I'm lost.
Yeah.
And then she tells him like, well, okay, well, stay there, we'll figure out a way to get you down. And then his last line is just like, I hope so. It's kind of like, that's an odd
Yeah,
response.
it's the whole chapter's been this adrenaline fueled kind of, and then right at the end, it's like everyone kind of deflates a little bit and goes, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just his I hope so is funny to me. Really? I mean,
Yeah.
that they're like wizards and sorcerers and stuff, right? I'm sure they can get you down.
And that's the end of the chapter. Oh my word.
That was a pretty short chapter. It was good, intense.
It was an intense chapter. Yeah, I really liked that chapter.
Me too. So on to the magic.
Okay.
What was your moment of magic in this chapter?
Okay, so before I said I'd talk more about the force of Aunt Pol's will on Jarvik in that moment where the Riven, Water and Barrack drag him in to, confess what's going on. And I just really, the intensity of that kind of magical connection where it's mind to mind with no other action, word or indication or change of expression going on apart from the focus that she has on him, just this eyeball to eyeball contact. There is so much incredibly powerful magic in just that, eyeballing someone, getting that kind of intimate connection. You let all the sorcery of this story fall away, and that is still a really powerful connection that breaks through barriers and makes people weep and makes people cry, makes them angry, makes them defensive. Like, there is so much power in that raw connection. So that's my magic.
That's a good one. I like that. I chose Garion's bravery in this chapter, specifically the moment when he decides to enter that tunnel that's completely, you can't see anything at all, because it's like, I don't know, that takes a lot of guts, and not many people would actually have the bravery to step in there. They might try to go out and find another way somewhere
Especially
else.
with cobwebs.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that was magical. He was able to do that.
Very, very
especially
good.
for a young person.
I see that. Personal insight.
Yep.
So my personal insight is kind of deep this week. I wrote it down. I was in a very deep state of mind when I wrote this down earlier today. But when Aunt Pol is working her will on Jarvik, Queen Oslina is like really intensely focused on how she's doing it, trying to because she fancies herself a bit of a mystic, a bit of a sorceress herself, but she's not really. And she's desperate to know how Pol is working her will on Jarvik, but she can't bear the visible power of it working. When he starts screaming and he's begging her to take it away, and she flinches, like Queen Oslina flinches. She can't bear the power of it. And I just was reminded of the way, I uncover when I'm doing really deep self-inquiry, you know, the really big stuff, the raw, powerful questions, you know, to work through emotional blockages and triggers and, you know, the big buttons that get pressed and I react in certain ways that, you know, in patterns that are harmful to me. And so when I'm doing that kind of deep work, and I uncover the bit of wisdom, like I sort of get beneath all of the hard stuff and get to the wisdom. I sometimes get quite afraid of the power that I find there, you know, and both the act of discovering what's there is really powerful, and then being there and staying with it long enough for it to invite me to like embody what it's trying to teach me and bring that back up to the surface is quite, it just reminded me of that reaction that Selena had, because you know, often, any number of times, I will just kind of flinch and I can't bear it and I have to turn away until, you know, I'm ready to like really go down and take it back with me. So yeah, that was my personal insight.
Yeah.
So too deep?
I mean, it might be a little deep, but it's also really like insightful, you know, because not all of us have ability to do that kind of work or even go there or understand what it means. And it's fascinating to hear, you know, from the people who do. I'm just starting to kind of explore that, I think, for myself. And
I see that, and it's so exciting. I sit here celebrating these breakthroughs that you're having, and you know, I even celebrate the hard stuff that you come to, and you kind of, you lean into, each time you lean into something difficult, I just, you know, I almost want to weep with the joy of this coming to yourself that you're doing. It's just, I mean, I just love you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this stuff here has been a huge part in it for me. So, no, I'm appreciative of it. Let's see, my moment, my personal insight. I went back to that dark tunnel again. Just, I don't know I don't know why that jumps out at me so much, but I just remember being younger, like around teenage or a little bit younger, thinking, you know, let's see where this is going to lead, knowing full well that it could be something dangerous, but going anyways.
Ooh, I want to hear those stories.
Yeah, it was just, you know, outside somewhere, and I'd wander off down, like following the river or something, to where there was nobody around, or yeah, or things where, you know, it's like a alcove of some kind, and you know, you want to see, like, is there something hidden back here? And just curiosity gets the better of you, I guess. So
yep, I get that.
Yeah, I relate to that one.
Sorry, I wasn't facing my microphone just then. I've once again forgotten to choose a book, so I'm just going through my stack of books.
Yeah, because we are on to Prophecy Speaks already.
Yes, we are. Do you want me to go first?
Sure, you go ahead.
Okay, so this week I'd like to ask about, okay, there's a particular physical issue that I've got going on with my body. And it's a very surface issue, but it's really fucking annoying. And as with all things, I completely believe that all of the physical things that manifest in my body have an emotional component that anchors them and creates some kind of blockage, especially chronic stuff and stuff that is there for a long time that you get rid of and comes back, and you get rid of and it comes back, or you never quite get rid of it. Especially those things.
Yeah.
have quite deep emotional roots, I think. And this is the kind of work that I do with my clients. And I find it really hard to do it with myself sometimes, you know. But this particular thing, I would really like to know, to get a handle on how to approach releasing it, how to approach working with it, how to approach accepting it, or whatever the bloody hell it is I need to do, because I had enough of it.
That's a good one.
During this period, young children from the privileged class all began their studies with the Chinese classics. The classical elements of Japanese culture were still retained in their early training. Traditional Japanese flute playing and the recitation of writing of poetry were just a few hobbies of the well-to-do youth at that time. Gichin Funakoshi, let me try that again. Gichin Funakoshi. Sorry, any Japanese listener, that was atrocious, forgive me. Passed his test to enter medical school, but due to the fact that he still had his samurai top knot, was not accepted as a student of the school. Many gentrified families were unhappy with the changes that were taking place in Japan. They refused to accept the changes around them and consequently joined what was known as the obstinate party. Holy shit. I'm sorry. I'm actually putting my feet on the ground. That's just so, that's so amusing. So I'm sorry, I'm reading this from the Reiki source book by Bronwyn and Fran Stein.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm being really, really stubborn about something.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm unhappy with the changes that are taking place. And I'm clinging on to this old thing, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also another little thing in here that I picked up. I've recently started playing and singing in a band again.
Yeah.
But I haven't been practicing one of the instruments, and it's a woodwind instrument. They touch on Japanese flute playing, and it's not a Japanese flute, but it's a saxophone. So it's the one thing that I have been really stubborn about not practicing.
Mm-hmm.
And it is related to a kind of a big thing that happened to me when I was about 15, tied up in that period of my life. So I can see how picking it up again consistently, because I pick it up every now and then and just give it a blart and, you know, disgusted with myself at the fact that it doesn't sound like it used to, because I was a really, really good player. Okay, this gives me something to work with, like an action. So music for healing has kind of become a thing at the moment. So the singing that I'm doing and the breathing that I'm doing to bring the singing out in a really full way.
Yeah.
So maybe I just need to do some sax practice every day, huh?
Yeah, it's time to add that instrument to your arsenal of music.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Actually, that's really helpful. Cool. Excellent. Done. Your turn.
Awesome. Okay, so I have the book. This is a new book that was brought to my attention this last week called Intuition on Demand. I don't necessarily like the title, but the book's really good. And it's by Alysia K. And my question is kind of deep and it might be more than just a quick answer, but I want to know what's the best way to get the answers and guidance to the big questions that I have going on in my life right now. Because like I mentioned to you earlier, I don't know that we recorded that part, but my thinking mind is so much in control, my intuition can't like even have a chance to step in and like actually give me the guidance.
Yeah.
So even if I try to do intuitive work or something, my thinking mind is always like the answering one.
Yeah.
And so I want to know how to move past that so I can get the answers to the really big questions I have. So let's see. I'm doing the Kindle again. I'm just flipping here. An important aspect to practicing with your intuition is to select good exercises for intuition and know how to practice properly. Ideally, you should practice with a partner that is someone who is of like mind and interested in helping you or interested in improving their intuition, so you can change roles during your exercises. Again, there is a right way and a wrong way to do intuition exercises, and this will be explained in a later chapter. Also, later in the book, there will be many great intuition exercises you can do at home or with a partner.
So what is it specifically about that pops out to you?
I think the fact that I need to find what works for me. Like, she says there's a right and a wrong way. I don't know what she really means by that.
What does it, okay, don't worry about what she means. What does it mean to you?
I think the way it's phrased there comes off to me like there can't really be a wrong way, can there?
Well, I have my own perspective on this. I am asking you what does it say to you? What is your intuition about this particular thing?
Well, everything that I've been reading lately and, working on within, I've really learned that there's not a wrong way. You have to find the way that works for you and do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, just the last thing is that for me, like following a step by step doesn't work. Like I don't do well with that. And she does have, I've already read this whole book. She does have step by step stuff. That some of it, it helps with me with my guidance of like how to do intuition work. But I think I'm already ready to leave those exact steps behind and instead use the other books that have really helped me with this stuff as guidance to do my intuition work.
Okay, so you have just answered your own question, my darling.
Yeah, so that's it. I really enjoyed this book, but I still think that the books that really helped me are my answer. And this book helped me get where I needed to be. So.
Yes.
That's it.
And the thing that stands out to me about this is that you asked how to follow your intuition and you read something and you followed your intuition by saying, well, this is not how I follow my intuition, and you trusted it.
Yeah.
Do you see that you did that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do. Yeah.
So that's very cool. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. I just want to, maybe I even need to give up because she gives like those exercises so that you can test yourself. Like I said, when I'm following a car and I'm driving, it's one of the things she says is to ask your intuition, where is this car going to exit? Almost every single time I'm wrong. And so it's like, okay, maybe I'm not meant to use these exercises, or maybe it is my thinking mind is too much in control and it's just throwing stuff out there.
Or maybe it's not important for you to know, so you just don't care.
Yeah, that could be it. Oh my God.
Like if it was going to be if it was something that was going to cause an accident and you had to know and you had an intuition to watch out because that car's going to turn left, you would totally listen to that.
Right. Maybe that is the problem with those little exercises for me. I don't care.
Hello.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. So what is
Okay.
your prediction for the next chapter?
All right, I put that they're going to leave Cherik because of all this that's happened, that they think it's no longer safe for Garion here. And they're going to venture on to their next destination, wherever that is, to continue the hunt for the one in possession of the thing they're after, which is how it's always basically described.
You're getting a bit fed up with that, are you, darling?
Yeah, I mean, it's like we already know who and what it is. Just start saying it.
We don't officially know yet, and maybe there's a reason we don't know officially yet.
Could be. Okay, so hashtag, I wrote one down.
Oh, thank God, because I didn't. What a surprise.
My hashtag I put is I hope so.
Oh, that's sweet. Okay, let's do that. I hope so. All right. Okay, listeners, my darlings. I just love that you're here listening to us. The special secret hashtag for this episode is hashtag I hope so. And we hope you use that hashtag on social media when you talk to us, share your own little bit of prophecy or start a conversation about the podcast or ask your questions or geek out over the characters in the story or whatever. Just say hi. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook, and no, you can't find us on Twitter. It exists, but it's invisible. There's nothing there. So don't try Twitter. Instagram and Facebook are our favorite places, and we have a website where you'll find all of the clickable stuff to find out more about us and more about the things we do and more about the episodes and how we set everything out and the show notes and all of the good stuff. So you'll find us at belgariad.goddesskindled.com, and we hope that you do. And what did I forget, Alysia?
On iTunes, you can leave ratings and reviews for us, please.
Please. That would be great.
Yeah, it would be. There was something else, but it already flew away from my mind, so must not have mattered that much.
I just want to say how much I'm enjoying chatting with Dawn, who chats with us on our Facebook page. And Dawn, you are just glorious, and I do a little happy dance in my chair every time you reach out to us. So keep that shit up.
I know. I need to get on that more. I haven't even seen since the first conversation. I've tapped out of social media, but I want to be on that Facebook page and on our Instagram.
Well, get on with it. That's I can't make you do that.
I know. I just don't know what. That's the next thing I need to figure out is planning my day between everything. So
yes,
I'll make time for it.
All right, cool.
But that's it.
That's us. We're done.
See you guys next week.
Thanks for another excellent episode. That's excellent.
It was really good. Thank you for your insight, because that was very helpful.
Well, that's my pleasure. I do like to talk.
Yeah.